Hi, everybody. So, one topic that I have just been fascinated by over the last few years is physics. I don't know, it's just a subject that I got back into after really conceptually loving the idea of astronomy as a kid, but then kind of failing to follow through on science and everything once I was in high school and college. But I've gotten back into it, and so, first of all, I want to say this is I hope a video that's going to attract physicists because I want you guys to contribute to the conversation. However, my contribution is going to be more conceptual to the art world and even more specifically to the music world because I've been thinking for a while about how this concept of entropy might relate to cultural matters. So just as a quick overview, and I also even made a video about this. I did like a fake Attenborough accent and it's kind of cheesy, but I'll link it. But yeah, I've been fascinated by the concept of entropy because it's like, it sounds like an esoteric thing. Oh, that you'll hear it described as things get more disorganized over time, a tendency towards chaos. You'll hear things like that, and it sounds a little bit wishy-washy. It kind of sounds like where science meets voodoo, except for the fact that you can quantify entropy. So that's like mind-blowing. And I'll link to an Alpha Phoenix video where I think he shows it most clearly with a tube that has a filter in the middle that separates out salt water from normal water. And just from heating it up, you see one side higher than the other because the chance of the water molecules going through the filter stays the same, but the salt, of course, is staying on this side, and so the water is higher. So the tendency towards the more typical state of the water just being wherever leads to an actual energetic effect that pushes the water up. So entropy in this way is also very much related to heat. And one thing that I've seen clarified a bunch of times in a lot of different videos, including by Veritasium, probably the most popular science YouTuber, is that entropy is not necessarily disorder. It's not necessarily chaos. It's almost better described as moving from less likely to more likely states. And we can think about this when we think about some of the effects. So like if you were to have a glass of water and you pour the glass of water in, for a little bit, the water molecules are just randomly wherever. But no matter how much some water molecules might all want to be over here, it only takes a second or so for everything to end up in the most typical state. Now, of course, I could pour a second glass of water and the molecules are all in different places, but we would say that the state of the water being level and in its most compressed form because of the gravity and everything as the most likely state. So among all the different configurations of water molecules, you're going to have some unlikely ones that happen just by chance as you're pouring, but then it's all going to settle down. A similar thing happens anytime you burn something, because if you burn something, it went from being this specific thing to just being ash and heat, which is a very likely state. So the end state of all energy is just heat transfer. And as my physics textbook that I did download to try to actually be, somewhat knowledgeable about physics makes very clear, heat's not energy. It's the transfer of energy. So heat just describes how active the molecules in any given area is. And this is the way it relates to entropy, because entropy is very similar. It's kind of like the amount of activity per volume or whatever. That's not the exact formula, but it's in the Alpha Phoenix video. So anyway, so taking these concepts over to music, I was thinking about Michael Jackson, all right? Let's think Billie Jean. Very, very culturally relevant song. You still hear it on the radio. I've covered it on my music channel. It's a popular song. And at one point it didn't exist. And now seemingly it's reached its state of possibly maximum entropy, right? Because you took this brilliant song that was also from an artist that already had links to publishing and production and all that stuff, and all of that contributed to the low entropy point at which the song was conceived, right? So as the song first hits your ears, low entropy, everybody gets hyped about it. And then it becomes a song that everybody knows about, but they still like. And then it becomes a song that simply everybody knows about, and it'll be so old that there is almost, it's almost impossible to non-ironically like without some degree of detachment from your time period. For example, the way that Beethoven's Ode to Joy is almost, it's like, do you like it because you like it? Do you like it because it's something that really hits at the human experience? Do you like it because you've heard it your entire life? I mean, it just gets very complicated, right? And I think that is one type of maximum state of entropy. But when you think about likely configurations, the likeliest configuration of music seems to be music that doesn't go that far, though, right? And so I guess that's resolved by, if you, without the connections to publishing and everything, write a song that's an okay song, maybe a very good song for you, but nonetheless, lots of people already write songs and aren't connected to publishers, so that is already a pretty likely state, and that song already has pretty high entropy. So I think that there's something to be found here in terms of kind of just assessing what is going to have like maybe cultural impact and what is going to, or just like a way of sort of ascribing, possibly just after the fact, sort of a conceptual understanding of, you know, if you have something that's exactly in the right place, already has the right machinery around it, and is one of those things that's going to tap into the human experience, that is a very low entropy point. And I want to reiterate that you need all that other stuff around it, because in order to create low entropy, you have to put in tons more high entropy than you get out. So the perfect example for this is air conditioning. All of the temperature wants to arrive at an equilibrium. That is the highest state of entropy. And especially since we're always creating heat, our bodies create heat, our machineries create heat, the temperature inside should always be rising slightly to meet with an equilibrium. And yet we're able to air condition. But the air conditioning units themselves, they have to be outside. Why? Because they create tons of heat. So the irony of warming planet and using AC to just cool it is that also is contributing more to the heat that's outside, that makes it more extreme what you need to do with the AC inside. So anyway, but I think that's important, because the low entropy, to create a point of low cultural entropy requires a lot of effort, probably many orders of magnitude more effort than what you get out of it in terms of the low entropy. But if you do successfully get that low entropic point, its bubbling seems almost as inevitable as any other thing, as the fire that consumes, or as the extra energy that there is on Earth from the volcanic activity underneath Earth's surface to the sun's rays that come and get collected in an atmosphere and stuff, has to go somewhere. It could just burn up and go straight to heat, but life's like the thing that it's doing in the meantime, which is a very fascinating and cool way to think about life. So anyway, so I got interested at this point because I'm like, all right, at this point I feel almost like I just want to make a video asking people how they feel about that hypothesis, like especially physicists. Do you agree that's how it is? Are there additional insights you could make? And I just thought, well, let me just check real quick. So I actually found that a lot of people have tried to relate entropy to the arts, and in a couple of different key ways. So I thought those would be interesting to share with you as well before I extend it to you to offer your insights. So the first term is cultural entropy, which is basically a term from business, as I found out, which basically refers to the tendency for organizations to get more bloated over time. So this I don't love as much. I know it's because it's not my idea, because it has to do with that idea that entropy is chaotic. Which isn't as true as the tendency to move from lower or less likely states to more likely states, right? So in that way, maybe it's a less perfect analog, but maybe not, because I think that idea there is relevant too. You know, when you create a new business, that is kind of a low entropic point. The maximum amount of possibility is in your future, and you can do things very, very quickly without a lot of red tape. The bigger the business gets, the more red tape there's going to be, the more accidents that result in, whatever problem there's going to be, the more accidents that result in lawsuits that take away the funding here is going to be, et cetera, et cetera. So this is actually probably why ought to be some sort of business life cycle, but we're not going to dwell on that too much right here. We just want to say that is cultural entropy as defined by what I found. And the other term that I found is musical entropy. So a lot of people have written about trying to quantify the disorder of pieces of music. I think, that's also based on that same slightly flawed understanding. Again, to my unprofessional physics understanding of entropy, slightly flawed understanding of entropy to begin with. But I think that also makes sense because, in the early days of music, you're going to be making music that's accessible. You're going to be making music that's like the low-hanging fruit because that's just what you're going to be finding first, right? And over time, all of that simple stuff, for the most part, has been discovered, has been done. And so you want to build on that. And also over time, and especially as education and also recording of music gets better, people are able to get to more complicated places of psychological understanding of the music within their lifetimes. And so that leads to an intrinsic sort of complication of the music as well. So I do think that's also a very fascinating aspect of it. So to kind of synthesize, so my initial musing about entropy is that you have to put a lot of energy into trying to create these points of low entropy that then have a lot of lifespan and can intrinsically sort of grow because it's gonna try to reach its state of maximum entropy. If you have a really good song with really good backing, like financial backing, whatever, institutional backing, that won't just stay still. That won't just stay in that place. It's going to bloom. It's going to blossom. So I think, and of course, as somebody who makes art, I'm kind of interested in that, analyzing what possibly could be the thing that is bigger. And then as we also discovered, cultural entropy, which is like the longer the artist is around, the more bloated their enterprise gets. We do see that, definitely. Like how Eminem's gotten worse with the more money he's gotten because this whole thing was about being beaten down by the system. And then we also have musical entropy, which is, I really respect the fact that they can quantify it too, because entropy is quantifiable, a way of quantifying the complexity within music over time, which also seems to be a thing that is going to intrinsically happen within culture. And that probably does also change what sort of things even are going to constitute low entropy in the first place. I feel like the potential flaw in this theory is like, are there things that, are unlikely states that just stay that way? And I guess that's why I said it's kind of crucial that you have that like publishing producer component. But anyway, I just wanted to share that thought. I think it's kind of interesting to think about, and more even just than sharing all my thoughts about it, I genuinely think there's so much more to explore here, and I wanted to extend the conversation to the audience that watches this. Hopefully the ideas made sense. If not, I'll do a follow-up or something about it. But yes, thank you for watching, and leave your comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.